Call our meeting to order tonight. Sherry, if you do the roll call, please.
English.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Gookin.
Yeah.
Miller.
Here.
Wood.
Here.
McEvers.
If we would rise, we have Pastor John Padula with the Altar Church with us tonight. Welcome, John.
Good evening. Father, we want to thank you for being so gracious in all of our lives and bringing us together tonight. God, I pray for our council and for our mayor. God, I pray you'd be their strength and conviction, that you'd lead them in decision-making and everything that they have to do in our city. I pray you'd allow them to always hear your voice, to act according to your purpose for the city of Coeur d'Alene and for the county of Kootenai. We thank you for being so faithful in everything that we do and everything that we see here in Coeur d'Alene. We love you and we give you all of the praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Dan, if you lead us in the pledge, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have any amendments to the agenda. We did have a cancellation in our presentation on the item number one. The gentleman had transportation issues getting here from Boise, so that'll have to come at another date, that presentation. So the first one I have on our list is a public transportation update from CityLink. Chad? Welcome, Chad.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Okay, so thank you for allowing us to present this evening. My name is Chad Engel, and I work for Kootenai County in the Resource Management Office in the Transportation Department. And my role in the department is Program Manager, overseeing the operations of our fixed route, paratransit, and our Rigger Ride program, as well as overseeing our Integrated Mobility Innovation Grant funded by FTA. Here are a few of the major projects we're currently working on, and today I'm going to elaborate just on a couple of these. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the Strategic Service Plan and the IMI grant. Our Strategic Service Plan we launched back in April, and one of the most exciting aspects of this project is the integration of our plan into each jurisdiction's planning process. Kootenai County is growing and changing, and public transportation must evolve as well. Kootenai County Public Transportation Strategic Service Plan lays out what the area's public transportation system should become and sets goals, objectives, and strategies for attaining an efficient and effective mobility system. A key goal for our Strategic Service Plan effort is to integrate multimodal mobility options, enabling individuals to plan and execute complete trips throughout the region. This will include non-motorized transportation options as well. Key objectives of our plan include improving service, meeting current and future ridership needs and demands, increasing bus operation efficiency and effectiveness, as well as reducing overall operational costs. This slide is a representative list of all the activities we will conduct to meet the goals and objectives of our service plan, as we work with our local jurisdictions and partners to bring all aspects of the plan together. So we put together a work group, and we met back in April on the 21st. And the benefits of this group are to coordinate efforts to develop the regional programs that enhance transportation access, they minimize duplication of efforts, and implement cost-effective transportation service with available resources. Here are some of the individuals that were able to participate in our working group and provided some vital information towards the efforts of this plan. Next, we're going to talk about our Integrated Mobility Innovation Grant. And we presented to the council back in January, and which we talked a little more in depth about what the grant is all about. So as a follow-up, we are in the process of creating the regional mobility platform with our partner Passio Technology. The platform will result in an application that will tie public and private transportation options together to create more choices for the traveling public. The app will enable riders to create tailor-made mobility solutions by selecting desired transportation mode, cost, and accommodation, if any, as well as choose from the providers that we have. The rider can choose to combine available options to suit their needs, then book and pay for the entire trip without having to navigate multiple websites or apps. Our goal for this project is for the app to be accessible and intuitive for everyone. Currently, we are on phase 2 of the platform development, which we are working actively on the rider app, as well as developing the transportation provider app. Next, in the development phase of the platform, we will have our website where transportation providers can register for providing services and put their service parameters along with this, developing the admin controls for the platform. We are on track to hold our first demo at the end of September, showing the full capabilities of the platform. So this will show individuals how they can set up a profile, set up a trip, and select between different trip options. We are actively planning for the future and seeking innovative ways to provide excellent transportation service. While looking to the future, we are keeping an eye also on existing needs. We are seeking additional transportation opportunities through express routes, rideshare programs, van pools, bike share, and possible microtransit. This transit service offers a highly flexible routing and scheduling of smaller, more nimble vehicles shared with other passengers. I thank you for taking the time for us today, and I look forward to any questions or feedback anybody may have.
Any questions from council tonight? You must have answered all their questions.
All right, perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
And he took 5 minutes.
There you go. All right, so next is an update to our fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. Troy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Since we got together a couple weeks ago, more numbers continue to come in for the city of Coeur d'Alene as we prepare for our public hearing at our next meeting in September. And the numbers continue to be positive on the revenue side. I'm going to share with you tonight a significant change from the high water mark that was set. Other than the fact that the gross dollar amount is the same, we're going to propose to you that there are 0 property taxes coming forward to our constituents in this next year. 2 weeks ago, we had a 3% property tax increase forecasted, and that is $700,738. We have a number of zeros over the years on property taxes that have not been taken. So new construction, with the way that the new formula is done, continues to go down because we are proposing a 0% increase in property taxes. Thus, the levy rate for the new tax dollars takes us down, unfortunately. You have looked at this multiple times. I apologize, but we talk about growth and what's happening. City of Coeur d'Alene's new construction dollars go, it's the lowest we have seen since 2015. Part of that's the formula that was done by the legislature.
Troy, how much approximately did we have to reduce the new growth number? Is it about 35,000, somewhere in that number?
That was only 9,478 to be exact.
So that is the number we had. Well, what I'm talking about is if it was a normal new growth year, right? If the legislature hadn't passed whatever they passed, right?
Right.
We would have been allowed to take all of our new growth.
Gotcha, besides the 10% haircut? Correct.
Right. So it's about $35,000 that we had to reduce the new growth number by.
Thank you.
So new growth doesn't pay for itself, and we all get like 2 cents
property tax relief,
Yeah, something like that.
something like that.
Yeah.
And, Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
If I
Christie.
may ask. Troy, we're not seeing the dollars as we had before. How does that correlate with building permits or does it?
Well, it's not a direct correlation. However, building permits are pretty close to budget. So our budget number has been very good there. We didn't anticipate the fact that this legislation would kick in, drop it 10% right off the top, come up with a new levy rate to calculate what the new growth is. So,
I can answer that. A lot of the stuff, the permits are still the same, but it's rebuilds. It's not new growth.
So we're not seeing, like the other cities around us, we're not seeing that level of growth.
right,
Okay.
our new construction.
Thank you.
The good news continues in the fact that the city of Coeur d'Alene is able to stay at or better than budget. What do I mean by that? This is the fund balance. You could call it the rainy day fund. You could call it our savings account. Anything that the city doesn't spend in its general fund goes and rests in your fund balance. As we finish this year up, we probably will not be at the forecasted number. We will be better than that. So that gives myself, and the mayor worked on this very hard, and council great comfort in the fact that our forecasted fund balance will be better than what you see here. It's just hard to do it mid-year. So that's another significant reason why we're looking at this. This is a pretty big number. Total increase in general fund is $3.2 million. New growth is 315. We've a slight increase in the use of fund balance to square this up. So we still are coming from our rainy day fund at $1,324,835. The significance to this new budget is that thanks to a strong state, we could argue that we are the strongest state in the U.S. for rebounding from the pandemic. We're one of only 4 states in the country that is at pre-pandemic employment.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Troy, in the total coming from fund balance, there's some of that is carryover. Or is it? I assume it is.
Define carryover for
Well,
me.
so an item that is budgeted for but not spent in a prior year and then spent in the next year.
We are budgeting everything you've looked at, so I wouldn't call it carryover.
Okay, so this isn't like when we bought the fire engines, and so it showed up in one year, even though we've,
Right.
okay, just wanted to see it. That's all spending, that's not
Anticipated.
carry forward, okay.
Yep. Very good clarification, yes. And so we don't want to do that because that just compounds the challenge. So again, $2 million in state funding. What we have modified to make up the $700,000 since we last got together 2 weeks ago, we had good news from Kootenai County Emergency Medical Services System. We are a contracted agency to that. They are proposing a $34,827 increase. We are looking at liquor sales revenue greater than what we had proposed 2 weeks ago, $26,000. The thing that we are doing very, very well in the state, and I give you those numbers from our labor statistician, Mr. Sam Wolkenhauser. If I said that correctly, I apologize, incorrectly. State revenue sharing for this plan is $578,000 above what we had forecasted. So we are very near to what we had forecasted at this point in time, and we have another quarter to go in the year. So that we did not know 2 weeks ago. That confirms that the consumer is confident. That shows why we're partially having supply issues, because the consumers are doing a good job of purchasing things. So in a real quick way, that's the way we made up the $700,000 in property taxes that were proposed. And this has gone to $2 million increase from state funding, primarily sales tax. So, these are what we have been struggling with for a while. These are the expenses that are ongoing. Contractually, we have the merit, the cost of living, the 1% wage adjustment to public safety, health insurance increase of $136,000, and the plan has the additional staff. Slight increase to services and supplies and to capital outlay. So this plan includes a new sergeant and 2 new police officers. In here is a change from 2 weeks ago, which would be a code enforcement officer. I apologize, we keep bringing forward a police officer that's already employed because it was a grant, because it's the year-over-year change. 3 firefighters, which will allow us to cover all the shifts. The assistant street director that council kept seeking. And then the small other changes are really positive because it's creative in the fact that there's part-time people going into that negative 1.55 FTE. Parks Department would get that mechanic that we were looking for and all those other good things you've looked at for 2 workshops and 1 council meeting. So from our standpoint on the accounting side, an increase of 7.45 full-time equivalents.
Quick question. Of the original first preliminary financial draft from the very first workshop, are these the only ones that are moving forward from that original
Yes.
as additions? Okay.
So we are proposing these major capital items. There is 1 additional vehicle in here for the police department, and it's potentially a fully loaded squad car, so there's 4 in there. Fire department, you've looked at that, used equipment for our street department, building maintenance, and a redo of a roof. So that 4th police car is an addition in this plan. The chief will probably work hard to get it to be a code enforcement vehicle and then redo 1 of the squad cars. So they're a little over $80,000 with all the equipment in there. I would entertain any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Christie?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Troy, on the police cars, I think either I talked to you maybe at council or in the hallway. Are we able to use some of the federal funding that we're not sure yet how we can use, but have we at least gained the knowledge that we can use it on police cars?
We are going to put together a report that they are going to look at, meaning we're going to submit a request for dollars that they call revenue that we didn't receive. It's over $5 million. And if they approve that, and if we've read the code correctly that says that that can be used for ordinary business of the city, it can't be used for bonuses for administrators, it can't be used for paying off in arrears retirement programs, we would then have an availability to buy capital. So I don't have the exact answer, but we're going to put together a report that says, please grant us the fact that this $5 million in, quote, lost revenue can be used for that purpose.
Can it be used for personnel? Some of the expenses with personnel are just all capital?
We believe it's capital.
Okay.
The challenge, if I may interrupt, I
Sure.
apologize. If we use it for people, that's one-time money, and we wouldn't put ourselves in a good position, so.
Yeah. Well, you just went a direction I wanted to ask. First I want to say that I know how hard the mayor's worked on this budget every year. Every year, he's the guy we rely on to do the numbers, and Troy, you work with him, and so I know there's been a lot of effort put into this budget. And to go from a high water mark of 3% down to 0% is pretty commendable. I do feel like I need a little more information on the revenue. I guess what makes me a little nervous is the revenue is forecasted. It's sales tax revenue, it's liquor tax revenue. I think we can count on that liquor tax. I feel pretty solid about that. The sales tax, I guess I'm just a little concerned that we would build this budget on projected revenue. Not that I don't trust anybody's efforts or whatever information you've gathered. I'm just a little nervous about that. I guess my thought is, I don't want to set council up next year for maybe being put in the position of a large tax increase to fund what we've done this year, for it to carry over, to keep going. I'm really, really concerned about that. Next year's council could come back and say, wow, we got to take a big tax increase all at once, because we don't know. We don't know what the sales tax will be. We hope we're on the right track. So I think I would be a little more comfortable if we at least looked at the minimum, which would be a 1%. And the reason I say that is because I think it's easier on our citizens and our community when we do the minimum we possibly can, and we don't ever come back at a later date and say, well, we're really wrong about that. Now we've got to go all in for the largest increase we can get, and we may even have to look at foregone, or we're going to have to cut services. All the worst kind of scenarios is what I'm imagining. And I don't want to have to think that way, but I've been with a few organizations that had to do drastic cuts due to revenue. So what are your thoughts on a 1%?
Well, I might add something that, that the sales tax number is based upon state projections. The state projects there, a huge part of the state's budget is sales tax. So our sales tax number is modeled after increases that the state is taking, right, or seeing. Probably a little more conservative, because our sales tax number that we're putting in this budget, this coming budget, is just a tad more than this year's, right? Not a large amount, but just a tad. Now, I think we have to realize that this year has, for sales tax, has been a really good, solid year.
Yeah.
So our numbers are based upon the same budget scenario that the state has built theirs. So, the state, they take a bit of a risk as well when they build their budget off of sales tax revenue, but they have a lot more analysts analyzing what they feel that the revenue is going to be for this budget year. So I think that it's as solid of information that we have to go on as there is out there.
Well, and I can't appreciate that. I guess I would just, we're not making any decisions tonight, but I would just like us to keep having this conversation and make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for a real tough decision next year. So at some point in time, I think maybe I have in some old things that you've given us, the 1%, what that would equate to, so I can go back and look for that. But I just wanted to voice that a 0% is fantastic. We always want to get there, and with the work of you and the mayor, you've put in a lot of what we wanted. So it seems like a best case scenario, but it's projections that's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would argue that the minimum is 0, not 1.
Yeah.
And I would say it's actually kind of easy to get to 0. It's just like protecting your virtue. You have to learn to say no. One item in the budget I would like to discuss and see what council thinks. So we have an extra human that we're adding to our street department in the form of an assistant street director. I would like to offer and find out what the rest of council thinks if we would instead add another engineer to the street department. I think this is a higher priority. Right now, we have one engineer, Mr. Bosley, and we have Mr. Grant, who's also an engineer. 10 years ago, we had 3 engineers, maybe even more. It's just a job that I think a city our size should have more than one city engineer for that. I know Mr. Grant does specific things, but I think it's a bottleneck for other departments, getting plans approved, things like that. I would just offer that position, instead of being labeled Assistant Street Director, be another engineer, a deputy engineer or something like that, just because I think that's where we need to focus when we think of the future in our streets. And I don't know what the rest of you think about that.
I was going to say, Dan, would it help in the council's decision-making if we had Todd come to our next, because the next meeting is where we finalize that, or to get information, because Todd's not here tonight, right? And so Todd would be the one to speak to that. I mean, he worked with Troy and Bonnie to put that together, so.
If that's what you want, we'll do that.
Well, because I don't know, it would be hard for us without knowledge of running the street department, I don't think that any of us has been up in the street department running anything up there.
And I realize I've been to the street department a lot, so maybe you guys don't see or everything I see.
Well, and my thoughts on that are that if our street department director really felt that way, he would have pushed for an engineer rather than an extra person. I'm just wondering, if we're trying to jump into his shoes when he didn't ask for it and give him something he didn't want.
Maybe something he needs.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You said just say no, right? I don't know. I would want to hear from the department head. We have the same situation with the police department asking for patrolmen, and we're going to give them a code enforcement, which we see value in code enforcement. I'm sure they do too, but I think that the department heads know what they need. And as far as just say no, we still have to deliver many services. So that's why my concern is we'll be able to do it next year. And next year, do we have to really come back and say, now we need a big tax increase?
This is government. We're good at kicking the can down the road.
Well, and we also took out 2 legal department requests, and they haven't had an addition for many, many, many years to their department. So, their backlog and their workload is extensive, just like all the rest of the departments. So
Yeah, but if council's going to act like Santa Claus, they're always going to ask.
And I'll say too, that the code enforcement is in response to the short-term rental situation,
I-
which has been brought to everyone's attention, and I think council all agrees that we need to do something with the short-term rental situation. Dan?
Just to give feedback, since asked, and we are not deciding tonight, and I'm glad we didn't have to decide 2 weeks ago, because this is some kind of dramatic change from where we were. And I was one that, tentatively supported that maybe we'd need to go to 3%. Now, given this, I can't imagine the circumstance of supporting even 1%. It looks like we're going to have to figure out where to plug possibly some of the leftover. When we talk about, this being kind of risky with the state's estimates, it seems to me the only thing that's been kind of off the last several years is that they lowball it every year and have had this huge state surplus, which is nice that some of it trickles down to us. But yeah, and I'm hoping also in 2 more weeks' time, maybe we will have some clarity on those federal dollars and decision points. So no, I would be very reluctant if you're looking for feedback on any increase, but I am very anxious to see where we are in another few weeks. So.
Well, I knew I'd be a pariah, but it really is a concern of next year, not this year. I think you've done a remarkable job with the budget, but it just feels pretty risky.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just one more comment. We still have a budget that does not positively cash flow or even break even. You're still pulling $1.3 million forecasted from your savings account to fund operations, and there's
Right.
not a lot of capital in there. So the plan would be the capital that potentially will come from the federal dollars will help restore that, and we will get out of the going into the savings account to fund operations. So next year, we still have a fair amount of pressure on this financial plan based on that one number of $1.3 million.
Other question, Kiki?
Troy, on the amount needed in fund balance for 2 months' worth of expenses, has that always been 2 months by recommendation, or was it 3 months?
I think the minimum is 2 months. That would be, you're starting to go into a situation where you may not be able to fund your payroll at the end of the year, waiting for that property tax check.
Okay, and
3
then there
months
were
is better.
some kind of financial parameters that if you were at 3 months, you had better leverage options and some other things. So, but we're down at 2 months right now is what
We're
we're,
just showing what 2 months would equal
look.
if everything held true and there wasn't all the good things that we've just talked about. We would be below 2 months in 9/30/2022.
okay.
Troy, if you know off the top here, our total general fund budget is 44 million, 45 million? Vonnie might have that.
46.
46. And Kiki, that number that I have always seen is you want somewhere between 15 and 20% of your general fund expenditure budget in your savings account, general fund
That
balance.
would be healthy.
Yeah, so that's a healthy fund balance, somewhere between 15 and 20%, and we're right in that realm. Other questions for Troy? So in, I guess it's 3 weeks from today is when we have our final budget hearing, right?
September?
Yeah.
After
Yeah,
Labor
first one in
Day,
September.
yes.
All right, great. Thank you, Troy, appreciate it. And for anyone that says that I do all the work, I come in at the end. It's Vonnie and her staff that do all the work. So I appreciate Vonnie and her staff and all the work that they do, and they meet with all the department heads, and I get to, move some numbers around and do some analysis at the very end of it. So I get the easy part of that. So we'll move on to public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council should have 3 minutes to do so. Come on up. We'll go to this gentleman here, and then we'll come back over to you. So come on up.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I apologize for talking fast. I got the email earlier today at 3 o'clock from the Parks and Rec Department, which you have in front of you, as well as some pictures of the dodgeball game that we've been playing.
Excuse me, just state your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry.
please.
My name is Michael Lentz.
Okay.
I'm a newer resident here, but I did get here before half of the Californians. Although Coeur d'Alene and California do have one thing in common, and that's that neither of them have a dodgeball-specific court. So one of my passions in life is playing pickup dodgeball, as mundane as that seems. And so when I got here, I decided to start a pickup dodgeball game. So we've been playing out here. We started at Cherry Hill Park, and we've been playing at McEwen Park, 7 o'clock on Fridays. I don't know if any of you have seen the game out there. I've started the game at entirely my own expense. I bring the balls. I've done advertising for the game. And anyone can jump in and play. We kind of discourage children from playing, just like you would discourage. I wouldn't want to play basketball against an 8-year-old kid. Wouldn't be good for the 8-year-old. But as you can see from the photos, hopefully, we have a large, diverse crowd. Some women jump in their work clothes. We've had bachelor parties jump in. And like I said, everything's been at my expense. I'm happy to work with the city on this, but as you can see, I got the email earlier today from Parks and Rec, and they've said that we are, apparently numerous people are saying that we've been running people off of the court, which is not true. I'm happy to work with anyone at the court. All public property is pretty much like on a first-come, first-served basis for the most part. And so I get out there early with the balls just to make sure that people know that we are there, that we're going to be there. And I'm respectful to everyone that's out there. There hasn't been any issues other than one gentleman this past week actually getting upset for flying off the handle for no reason. But I've been kind to everybody who's out there. And part of the reason why that is because I've been trying to build a community. And on top of building a community, as is addressed in the email, he mentions that that I could possibly rent space from the school district, so I'm looking into creating a nonprofit to take the game into a gym into the winter. And I even have incorporated a business, Idaho Rec Leagues, just this last month, and I'm working with the Small Business Development Center at North Idaho College to build up the business, as well as various other organizations. So I recognize that I'm out there in public, talking to people, creating a community, and these types of things. So being rude to people or running people off of the court in an abstract way doesn't make any sense. They didn't have any details, as you can see from the email, other than just to say numerous people. He mentions in the email that they want to have more people use the court, but I think objectively you can see from the photos in the 3 hours that we use the court, there's objectively more people using the court than would otherwise. And in a week from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., that's 105 hours. We use 3 hours of the court out of those 105 hours that it's available every week. All right, I'll wrap it up here. He mentions turning off the lights also, which that seems like that would be bad for tennis players. But the bottom line here is that I want to work with the city, and I'm willing to work with the city to make it fun, make it legal, be in compliance with whatever. I'm working to incorporate a business and get insurance and do everything the right way. So I have two requests, and one is that the city would work with me to help make this a continuing fun experience. But number two, if it's possible tonight, if you all are able to make a motion or do anything to stop us from getting banned from the court, so we can continue to play while we work with the city to make it whatever would be best for the city as well. Thank you.
So thank you for bringing this to our attention. I think it's new to everyone here. We just saw this. Public recreation is a good thing. I don't care if it's dodgeball, pickleball, tennis, whatever. I think that we can work to accommodate your group. So we'll, I'll assign Troy out to work with our rec department to be in touch with you. I think that anytime people are getting out and getting active is a good thing, and I commend you for pushing it. It's something new. I mean, dodgeball is new to Coeur d'Alene. Anytime you have anything new, there's maybe a little bit of struggle at the beginning of it, but I think it's a good thing. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Adams, can the city legally ban someone from a basketball court?
There'd have to be a very good reason, such as violation of the law, discrimination, something along those lines.
Yeah, so, yeah, have fun.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll work it out.
Thank you very much.
Come on up.
I'm always nervous in front of a crowd. I'm 70 years old, it's ridiculous. But anyway, my name's Ron Kavlin. I'm here, I've been trying to get a permit to build a final building. I bought the old railroad property that ran between Foster and Miller. And I built, in early 2000, I built 2 fourplexes on Miller. I built 2 on Foster, and various delays over the years why we couldn't build. So I went in and started 3 years ago to get a building permit, and they said you can no longer get one. I guess because the council changed, or they've been redoing the R12 zoning. And you can only have 2 buildings. I have 1.5 acres there. And anyway, it seems strange, but they said, well, go to the council if you don't like it. I've been waiting for 3 years for them to get the R12 zoning changed or figured out where I can build. So now I have a 200-foot stretch of land north of Foster, First and Foster, and I can't get a permit. I mean, I've had a sewer stub out, I've had a water meter in there, and it's just ridiculous. 5 blocks from downtown Coeur d'Alene, I can't get a building permit. So I guess they just keep working on redoing this R12 zoning and trying to figure it out. But they said you guys are the ones that suspended multifamily on this. It seems strange, right behind me on 2nd Street, the guy just moved a house onto a lot that's probably the same size as what I have vacant. So he had a home, he moved a home from down the street onto this lot, and yet I can't get a permit to build on a vacant 200 feet piece of property. It just seems very strange to me. I have pictures if you want to see them, or a plat. Also, we divided the property in half. And this parcel here I'm talking about, it had 3 separate tax numbers. So we built 2 fourplexes, we got a tax number for each of them, and we had a 3rd tax number. So for 15 years, we paid taxes on this separate piece of property. So the first thing the building department guy said that it was an illegal split, and I tried to explain it wasn't a split, we just did it for a description for financing purposes, so we could finance each fourplex separately. So anyway, he said, well, you need to combine them before I can give you a permit. So I combined them. It's simple enough. It's caused a few problems. But anyway, so now after paying 15 years on this piece of property, a separate tax, like $1,000 a year, and I still can't get a permit. So I don't know what the council can do, hopefully something, or I worked with Chris Bates over the years. You know, I paved the first, 200 feet from Foster first. I paved it, put in the curbs, ran water hydrants, and kind of, you know, I have all the stormwater management. I've kind of done everything. We just got held up for financial reasons after building 4 fourplexes, and rents were lower then, and just illness in the family and such. So anyway, I need to build something. It doesn't make sense to have this vacant piece of property sitting 5 blocks from the lake.
Have you been in touch recently with our planning department?
I was there
to talk to them about that?
maybe less than a year ago, and I sat down with one of the city attorneys, and they brought in a whole group of people and basically said I was out of luck, I waited too long.
I guess what we're gonna need as a council, I don't imagine that zoning has changed. The zoning hasn't changed in a number of years there. I don't believe so. Hillary, you can just do this or whatever. It has not changed, right, in that area? The area of just north of Foster between Miller, or not, between.
It's 2 buildings per lot, and they said that what they changed was, it's 2 buildings per lot, irregardless of the size. So it used to be R12, you could build 12 units per acre. And they said that's what changed, and because the council didn't like the density of some places.
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind, and Hillary's right here, and she can give your contact information, just so that the council can be educated on what that situation is.
Right.
So Dan, go ahead.
Ron, are you trying to build multifamily on the lot?
Trying to build a fourplex.
Yeah, see, you have to have an R17 in order to do that.
Well, you didn't when I built the other 4.
I know, we changed it, so you'd have to get
That's my point.
you'd have to get a rezone.
So anyway, if you wouldn't mind getting together with Hillary, and then Hillary can get that information out to council, and then we can
I'm
see.
trying to help your construction growth tax dollars here.
Did this have to do with the pocket housing or cottage housing going away?
Pocket housing situation.
Isn't that supposed to be coming back to us? So,
Yeah, that's what they've been telling me for 3 years. They're working on it, so it's supposed to be coming back.
But pocket housing, we're kind of getting off on this.
yeah, we kind of need a real.
We'll have this
work-
discussion. If you would get together with planning, someone in planning, and then they can educate us, and there is some things moving forward on pocket housing.
If nothing else, it seems like I should be at least grandfathered in. I mean, it's been sitting there ready to go all this time, and obviously it'd been better if I built before you made some changes, but still, it fits into the neighborhood. There's like 20 units behind me on one side there on 2nd Street. Like I said, this guy just put 2 homes in one little lot. So, and it's worked out with me and the neighbors for 20 years, so one more unit's not going to cause any real problems.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others wishing to give public comments tonight? Yes, come on up.
Procedural question.
Oh, got it. What?
Hasn't been, oh, I'm sorry.
Name for the record, please.
Linda Putz, I just have a procedural question. Are we going to be allowed to speak on the different action items after they're presented, the ones that are, public comments is F?
The only one will be the public hearing, so the next public comment, so this is general public comment, and the next public comment, the only other areas will be on our public hearing that we have tonight, which is a zone change. So there's an opportunity there or for public comment, or there's an opportunity now for public comment.
So if I have an issue with the item number I, under other business, it's best to speak on it now, even if
Yes.
it hasn't been presented yet?
Item number I, yes, you can, so you're talking about the resolution for,
Number I-2, the
Art.
approving of the 10 new art pieces.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so
you
we're
could-
going to do that before it's presented?
you can comment on that now, if you'd like.
Okay, I will. My name is Linda Putz, and I had the opportunity to, and I sent you all an email, I had the opportunity to attend the Arts Commission meeting, and I thought they did a great job in presenting some of the art pieces. However, there are 2 art pieces that are before your approval, or pending your approval, that I do have issues with. I don't have the ability to put it up there, but I think you guys do. It's slide like number 100 on the pages, 100 to 103. And as I mentioned in my email, I'm very concerned because I think they're far too sexually explicit. Our city wants to be safe for everybody, and as a mother raising when my boys were young, I would have to drive in different parts of areas to avoid billboards, because we come from Southern California. Sorry, I came also after. And just, you have to avoid certain areas, and I don't think that's an appropriate thing for an art thing in our city, to have parents worry about where their kids are going to be seated in front of underneath a statue, or have to have driving by and seeing things that are inappropriate. I know at the meeting, one of the things they mentioned was, well, they could have a plaque explaining what the art piece was. Well, when someone is driving by, you're not going to have a chance to stop and read what that art piece is meant to do. So I'm here to ask the commission to approve the other 8, but to seriously consider not approving the two, Gaia and unrestrained force, because of the sexual nature and actual fear even. I think that one piece from unrestrained force is extremely terrifying for children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others wishing to give public comment tonight? All right, let's see where we're at here. Yes.
Waving at you.
Oh, do you want to come out?
Uh-oh.
Russell
Behave.
McLean, 2360 East Hayden View. A week ago, I found myself in a bad spot, and 911 sent the Coeur d'Alene paramedics, and terrific. Those guys, Johnny on the spot, under 2 minutes, knew exactly what to do, had me duct taped to the board, and in the meat wagon I went. And I just come to show some appreciation, some gratitude. They're very skilled and diligent. But anyway, that's what I come for.
All right, thank you.
Russ, we're glad, how you feeling?
Good, good.
Glad,
All
good to
right.
see you.
All right, so I think that completes our public, you want to come up?
One more thing.
Yeah.
My name is Ben.
Oh, you got it, no, we won't be able to hear you. Get all the way up there and you'll be good there, right there. There you
My
go.
name is Ben Aker, and I just wanted to thank you guys for being open-minded to outdoor activities. We really appreciate being able to use the tennis courts and stuff, and so I just want to say thank you for hearing us out.
Are you a dodgeballer?
Yes, sir.
We love the movie. I do.
Always. Thank you,
You
guys.
know, let the tennis players play dodgeball too, even if they don't know it.
All right, so we'll move on to announcements. Any member of the council have an announcement tonight? All right, we'll move on to appointments. So we have a commission appointment, so we'll be looking for council action on the commission appointments, if they so choose.
I do, I'm trying to find the, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion for the appointment of John Bruning, Jennifer Drake, and David Grove to the Arts Commission.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to oppose this. They're all good people. We have 50,000 people in this city, and I think we need some turnover on our commissions. We need some new people. I've also spoken to a lot of people in the arts community, and they're not happy with our Arts Commission, and I think some change would do the city good. So this isn't specific to anyone on that list. It's just a general comment, one that I've made before. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Gookin votes no.
Motion carried. Sorry, Dan. Move on to the consent calendar. So Woody is absent tonight. Who's going to do the consent calendar? I think Dan.
No, it should still be Woody. I hear him. He
Go
says,
Go ahead,
motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, including resolution number, no, Wood, it's 21049.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on approval of the consent calendar? Sherry, a roll call, please.
Gookin,
Yeah.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
Aye.
Motion carried. Move on to other business. This is resolution number 21-050, approving a Cdbg-CV grant agreement with Lake City Center using Cdbgcv funds for the reimbursement of air scrubbers purchased and installed at the senior center. Chelsea.
This will be short and sweet for you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is for a reimbursement for Lake City Center's air scrubbers that they've purchased and installed already. So our decision point tonight is, should City Council approve a Cdbg-CV grant agreement with Lake City Center for the reimbursement of 4 air scrubbers using Cdbg-CV funds in response to COVID-19. So this is a picture of kind of what they look like. They install directly into the ductwork, prevent dust buildup. They destroy, it says 99% of all surface and airborne contaminants. So they've purchased 4 of the units, and each one protects up to 3,000 square feet, and the Lake City Center is about 11,500 square feet. So it should cover that completely. So right now, we have approved $317,600 in Cdbgcv grants, and our ad hoc volunteer team unanimously voted to fund this reimbursement for the air scrubbers. Right now, there is $74,839 in our CARES Act funds to spend on COVID-related needs, and after this grant is rewarded, we'll still have $69,839. And the project falls under our CDBG national objective, benefit to low and moderate income persons, and meets our requirements for the CV funds to prepare, prevent, or respond to coronavirus. So our recommendation is City Council should approve Cdbg-CV grant agreement with Lake City Center using Cdbg-CV funds for the reimbursement in the amount of $5,000 for air scrubbers purchased and installed at the senior center. And that's all I have.
Questions for Chelsea?
Why can't this be more controversial?
So if there aren't any questions, we're looking for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 21-050, approving a CDBG-CV grant agreement with Lake City Center using CDBG-CV funds for the reimbursement of air scrubbers purchased and installed at the senior center.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Gookin?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Motion
Aye.
carried.
Thank
you.
A little slow on the draw there, wasn't I?
So next is resolution number 21-051, approving the selection of 10 new art pieces for the 2021 Art Currents Program and authorizing staff to execute the art display agreements. Troy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Arts Commission has been doing a significant amount of work. The goal here is to change out the art that has been displayed throughout our community. This is a program that's designed to generate funds, so these art pieces would be for sale. We put them out there with the Arts Commission dollars. We're proposing 10 pieces that we're seeking your approval on or your input on. The work of the commission is really done by our own Sherry here and the great volunteers. So a call to artists was published through Cafe, a software program opened up to local artists residing in Idaho, Montana, Washington, or Oregon. We required criteria that it has to be at least 3 feet tall, provide us a photo of the front and back, and a brief explanation of the art piece. That call was closed on the 9th day of July. Total of 14 art pieces from 8 different artists were submitted to the city, and the Arts Current Subcommittee met and selected the 10 pieces I bring forward to you tonight. The program is a $1,000 stipend for each year that the art is displayed. In the event that it's acquired, the Arts Commission would get 25%. So we have about a dozen locations throughout the community that we could place the art. The contract is in there. It speaks to the fact that the city gets to choose that. So this is collared from this artist. It is a tall piece of steel, 12 feet by 8 by 6. So we would work hard with your permission to find the right location for that. Timeline Theory by Ken Turner. We have in the packet the explanation of what the artist was doing with this art piece, and the price is noted there as well. Migration by Roger Squirrel, 10 foot tall. Squared Away, again by Roger Squirrel. Polyhelix, same artist. Does a lot with steel and stainless. Voyager, same artist. Gaia by Dale Young. Columnar basalt from eastern Washington. This is Interconnected, which is a large chain from a track hoe welded together. We might think of that going down along a trail near a park we'd call Riverstone, so there is some input on the fact that it would set up there pretty well. McCrae Wild on this aluminum and steel piece called Inside Out 9. and Unrestrained Force by Breezy Anderson. So we've modified over the years our arts ordinance, and you are the decision makers, is why I come to you. So these are the 10 pieces recommended by your Arts Commission. That would conclude my report.
Questions for Troy?
Well, just to clarify, we're not buying these. These are, the program puts them out on display.
Yes, in the arts current program, there's a stipend paid $1,000 per year to the artist. They are for sale, and the Arts Commission, should it sell, gets a 25% retainage for that art sale.
And could you remind how the Arts Commission gets their dedicated fund?
The Arts Commission gets its funds from public work projects in the city of Coeur d'Alene that are above ground, and it gets its funding from Ignite CDA in the different districts that exist.
Any other questions for Troy? Dan?
I don't know if you'll, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if you'll know this off the top of your head, but how much loot do we get from this program?
Loot. The bulk of the sales have been back to the city. We have not had a gigantic number of sales take place from the art that's displayed.
So it just goes back in the arts budget if it comes in?
The Arts Commission tends to like to acquire one piece a year, and this is one of our preferred
that's
areas
good,
to go acquire it from.
Nice.
Any other questions for Troy? If not, we'd be looking for council action.
Well, I would like to address what Ms. Putz brought up in the public comment regarding the two arts pieces. So we're talking about Gaia, and we're talking about Unrestrained Force. I don't see these personally, because as we all know, you recognize it when you see it. I don't find these pieces offensive or provocative or erotic in any way. And I think they're fine for this program. So.
Any other comments? Do we have a motion?
Does one of us want to make, I'll make a motion.
There you go, Kristen.
All right, I make a motion to approve the selection of the 10 new art pieces for the 2021 Art Currents Program and authorizing staff to execute the art display agreements.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would just say that I agree with what Dan's assessment, that it's art. And when people look at art, they see different things, but that's the beauty of art. We do have a commission that is quite active in the arts. They spend a lot of time researching and trying to find really good quality artists. And I don't think it's up to any individual council member to try to pick apart art, what we think is appropriate, what we don't think is appropriate. I think we have to respect that art is enjoyed by a lot of different viewpoints. And so I'm, with the exception of one item that we removed last year, quite the exception, I would never want to go down the road of trying to censoring artists.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please, Sherry.
English.
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Miller.
Aye.
Gookin.
Yeah.
Motion carried. Move on to resolution number 21-052, proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget and scheduling a public hearing for September 21st of 2021. Vonnie.
Good evening. Trying to figure out how to put this up here. Just a second. There we go. Good evening, Mayor Woodmeyer and City Council members. Tonight I'm asking for approval of Resolution 21-052. This resolution establishes a time and place for a public hearing, at which time the council will be asked to approve an amending ordinance to amend Ordinance 20-1011, which originally set the budget for the 2021 fiscal year. The resolution includes amendments to the budget of $2.4 million in the general fund, an increase of 5.6%, and $2 million in all other funds, which is an increase of 3.5%. for a total increase of 4.5 million, a total of 4.4% increase over the original budget. Idaho Code allows the City Council at any time during the current fiscal year to amend the appropriations ordinance to reflect the receipt of revenues and/or the expenditure of funds that were unanticipated when the ordinance was adopted. The city each year adopts an amendment or amendments to the appropriations ordinance. As a comparison to last year's budget amendment, that one was 7.1 million, and the year before that was 4.9. Unanticipated expenses are being funded by two categories: unanticipated revenues and designated fund balance. The designated fund balance is being used for project carryovers that were budgeted in previous years and expenses related to the CARES Act funding, which account for 1.6 million of the general fund amendment. Of the general fund amendment, the remaining 839,000 is being funded by unanticipated revenues. This fiscal year, unanticipated revenues were mostly generated through state sales tax receipts, federal grants, transfers from impact fees, and sale of surplus property. Increased expenses in the general fund this year include the following: various grants for the fire and police departments, and a grant for historical preservation from the state in the amount of $240,000. Project carryovers of $239,000, which include overlay and contracted tuition reimbursement. The demolition of the East Sherman properties, $70,000. Constant manning in the fire department of $280,000. Police and fire expenditures that used impact fees of $146,000. This was for the boathouse and police substation. COVID-related expenses paid through grant funds received in fiscal year 1920 of $1.3 million. Increased expenses in other funds include grants received by the library of $15,000, a wastewater debt service for the 2020 sewer revenue bonds of $930,000, $150,000 in increases in wastewater operating supplies, $27,000 for parking garage expenses, $430,000 for garbage collection expenses, transfers out of the impact fees of $146,000, and carryovers for the Memorial Park Grandstand, Memorial Park restrooms, and the trail realignment in the Parks Department. And that is all I have. I'm open for any questions.
So Vonnie, this is a procedural thing that you're required to do every year to make the budget amendments. And if you're, when looking at this, if you want to just boil it down just to a small amount, it is adjusting expenses that are covered by other revenues. For example, there was a lot of COVID grants, a lot of COVID revenue coming in, there was a lot of COVID expenses, or budget carryovers. That makes predominantly, makes up a lot of what the budget amendments are for. So there's revenue that comes in, but you need to amend the expense.
Correct. And the nice thing about this budget amendment is it does not use any of the undesignated fund balance. This is all designated fund balance that was designated at the end of the year when we did the audit report. So the numbers that Troy gave you of what the fund balance was at the end of the year, that didn't include any of the funds that are being used to fund these expenses, so.
Okay. Questions? Dan?
Well, just feedback for the public, too. On one hand, if you're not kind of used to this, you look at this and say, wow, that's a whole bunch of stuff. Here you guys are looking about next year's budget, and you're going to make all the amendments to this year's budget, and why didn't you know all of that's coming? And I can tell you from every year I've been part of one of these things, and it was about 15 years at the county. This is very ordinary. It happens every year. There will always be, thankfully, hopefully, grants that come in that you never knew were going to come. You'll get funding, and but you've got to account for that, for the in and the out. And so this is not something that reflects, oh, they weren't, looking at what was going on. But it's like, no, this is, we can predict that there will always be these end of the year adjustments. And this is the time of the year when you do it. So, and it's nice. It looks like we got a lot of extra, and we, I think, spent it in good places. So.
Any other questions or comments? So we'd be looking for council action.
Motion to approve Resolution 21052, which is approving the proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2020-21 budget and scheduling a public hearing for September 17, 2021.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
Dugan.
Yeah.
English.
Yes.
Motion carried. Move on to the public hearing that we have for tonight. This is a legislative hearing.
In the press, mailing of notices to neighbors and posting of the property site. So the location of the site is shown here, outlined in red. It is on the west side of 4th Street. This is 4th Street here, and then this is Snyder Avenue. Here's a little closer up view of the property. You can see here the Briarwood Townhouse project is kind of southwest of the subject property, and this is the Habitat for Humanity, the recent zone change request as well, just to the north. Here is an aerial photo, so just zoomed out a little bit, but showing a lot of the services in the area, just to kind of give context to the subject property. And obviously some major commercial uses are in the area, as well as transit and bike lanes along 4th Street, and there's a transit stop over here on Government Way. So for a zone change, there are 4 findings that must be made, so I'll walk you through each of those. So the first finding is B8, that this proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The subject property is in the Northeast Prairie, and it's in what we call the transition area, so we expect a lot of change over time. And this is very typical of this area. Lots of changes have happened along 4th Street and kind of that whole commercial corridor in the area. Characteristics of the Northeast Prairie neighborhoods will be, so there's a list of things. I'll just highlight the first one, talking about the overall density for residential, which is 3 to 4 residential units per acre. However, pockets of higher density housing and multifamily units are appropriate in compatible areas. And then, of course, acknowledging commercial uses, pedestrian and bicycle connections, things like that. The comprehensive goals and objectives, there's a few on the screen here, just kind of the numbers of those. In the staff report on pages 5 and 6 are the full list of those, but the ones that I wanted to point out were community design, so support the enhancement of existing urbanized areas to discourage sprawl and promoting efficient use of existing infrastructure, thereby reducing impacts to undeveloped areas. So those are the community design and the efficiency under the goal 1. And then the objective 2.05 here under economic environment, related to planning for multiple choices for live, work, and recreation within comfortable walking and biking distances. Managed growth under the home environment is providing for diversity of suitable housing forms within existing neighborhoods to match the needs of a changing population. And underneath that, the protect and preserve existing neighborhoods from incompatible land uses and developments is 3.05. And then 3.10, that objective here, is support efforts to preserve and provide affordable and workforce housing. Finding B9, that the public facilities and utilities are or are not available and adequate for the proposed use. So like all of our requests, we route it through the different departments and ask for their comments. And so all of the applicable departments, including police, have weighed in and provided in the staff report kind of the common things you'd hear for stormwater that's done at the time of development. The streets has indicated that the sidewalk might need to be improved and it would have to meet all ADA requirements out on 4th Street. For police, they indicated it's such a small project it wouldn't have any impact. Fire, those changes are made at the time of development as well to make sure that the project can be accessed and served by the fire department. And then there's existing water and sewer services on 4th Street. Finding B10, that the physical characteristics of the site do or do not make it suitable for the request at this time. And the site is generally flat. There's really not a lot going on. I'll show you on this site a tiny bit of topo, less than 5 feet across the whole site for kind of the change in topography. There is an existing house on the site, so a single-family home, and that will need to be removed at the time of development if the zone change is approved. So this is looking west at the home from 4th Street. This is looking at the same property here from the east side of the street. This is kind of on the southern boundary of the site, the notice for the hearing. So this is looking at it. This is the neighbor's property here to the south. And then this is looking south toward the Briarwood Townhomes entrance. And then this is looking south. You can see this is the formerly Lundine's violin shop. So this is a neighborhood commercial. So that's southeast of the subject property. We're looking south on 4th Street. And then here is looking north up 4th Street at the intersection of Niter and 4th. This is a zoomed-in version of that same location with Costco in the background. Finding B11, that the proposal would or would not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood with regard to traffic, neighborhood character, and/or existing land uses. And so, as you can see, the traffic, we had our city engineer, so Chris Bosley, weighed in on this and indicated just with the size of the property and the number of units, it wouldn't be a significant increase in traffic. He concluded it would increase by only 5 peak trips per peak hour, and that the existing left turn lane would greatly assist in the turning movements into and out of the subject property. So surrounding land uses, this slide really shows you color-coded kind of what's going on. So this darker gold is multifamily. The bright yellow is the single-family zoning in the area. This one is incorrectly marked. This is a parking lot, so that's commercial. So we do have, this is the recent zone change request, so it's currently vacant, and then the red indicates commercial uses. This is the zoning map, so this does reflect the recent zone change to the R17. This pink is the C17, so it's the commercial light, and then the red is the C17 commercial, R12 is indicated in the green, and then this is the neighborhood commercial. So proposed R17 zoning district, it is intended as a medium to high density residential district. It permits a mix of housing types, and that includes not only single family, but duplex and multifamily. That also includes townhouses, fourplexes, things like that. So it is intended to be established in areas that are not suitable for lower density residential due to kind of the proximity to more intense types of land uses, commercial corridors, et cetera. And then it's appropriate as a transition between low density residential and commercial districts, or as a buffer between arterial streets and low density residential districts. And then as you can see on this slide, one of the uses that's allowed by right is multifamily housing. So for the full information, you can refer to the staff report. This is a zone changes map, so all the green indicates zone changes surrounding the subject property. The most recent one was just to the north with the Habitat for Humanity zone change to R17. And then the one that was next most recent is the Lundeen's site for that neighborhood commercial zoning. So the decision point this evening is to provide a decision regarding the proposed zone change from R12 to R17 on approximately 0.47 acres. And your actions are to consider the request and make appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Council questions for Hillary? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Hillary, given the new zone change, how many units would they be allowed to put on that property?
On the subject property?
Yes.
Yes, so they have the ability to get to almost 8 units, I believe, with the zone change.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the applicant will probably speak to this, but based on the usable property, it's probably going to get them closer to about between 4 and 6 units. I think that's what was indicated at the Planning Commission meeting. Just once you kind of look at the whole site, and you have to have the access and parking and all of that met. So
Right,
it reduces the actual units on the site.
Right. Just theoretical, I mean, that's...
Theoretical,
So
yes.
theoretical is 8.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Hillary?
Hillary, could you go back to the slide that shows the current zoning of the property around the subject property?
Yes, let me, this one.
The one where it showed the gold.
So that's the R17, so that's what this property that the applicant is requesting, so it'd be the same. And then this is R12 PUD, but that allowed, it's a larger property, so they allowed the townhouse construction.
I think if you go back one more was the slide I was interested, there you go.
Okay, so this one is just existing land use, is not zoning.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more, Mr. Mayor. So Hillary, what are the, according to city code, what are the parking requirements per unit?
So it's based on the type of unit, so multifamily is based on bedrooms. And so they'd be required to meet the code for that. So if they have a studio, would be 1 parking stall required, 1 bedroom would be 1.5 stalls required, 2 bedroom is 2, 3 bedroom is 2 parking required for that.
And how do we calculate guest parking?
That's just kind of factored in. So it's not a code requirement, it's just something that a lot of projects would do just for
Okay.
understanding there's going to be visitors at times.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other council questions? All right, thank you, Hillary.
You're welcome.
Hillary, is the applicant here?
The applicant is here, yes.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind,
Yep.
that would probably
I
need
can
to
have it on this other sheet. So we have Paul Malin is here as the applicant. He didn't sign on that one, but I'll get him to
have
sign.
him say, okay, all right. So if the applicant would like to come forward, that would be great. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Paul Mallon, and I'm the applicant. Do you have any questions?
Do you have a presentation, or pretty much everything was summed up in?
Just a short statement.
Yeah, go ahead.
Everything's pretty much summed up. So, the North Idaho College Missing Middle Housing Forum and the Coeur d'Alene Housing Committee identified a lack of missing middle housing or single-family attached housing, which includes fourplexes and small multiplexes. This type of housing allows more seniors to downsize and remain in the community, while also providing more options for millennial households and working families to get a foothold in great neighborhoods. In this region, the missing middle is approximately 9% of the housing stock available. If too few housing units are constructed relative to the number of new households formed, underproduction occurs and contributes to price increases. The intent in developing this property with fourplexes or multiplexes is to help alleviate the shortage of the missing middle housing and provide attractive, energy-efficient units that are beneficial to the community and the environment. And finally, I'd like to add that we'd like to express our gratitude to the City of Coeur d'Alene Planning Department. They have been extremely responsive and helpful during the entire process and should be commended. And then one last comment is this would also help the new construction funds.
All right, questions? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, it doesn't, because you're building on property that's already, it doesn't add. It adds valuation, but it doesn't add.
New construction.
Yeah, new construction. So how many units are you going to be putting in?
So according to the Planning Commission, theoretically 8, but the person I was talking to said realistically that's probably going to be in the 4 to 6 range with parking and, landscaping that's required, so.
So you don't have any plans yet?
We are working with an architect.
Okay. Let's see. So this is you in the rebuttal that you gave to the Planning Commission. You provide adequate parking for the units per the city requirements to be 8 parking stalls, but the addition of infrastructure would lower those parking stalls to the 4 to 6 range. Can you explain that comment?
So theoretically, you could put 8 on there.
8 parking stalls?
No, I'm sorry, 8 units on there.
Right.
But realistically, you can probably put about 6 because you have to have the parking stalls to meet the city code for parking.
So these are all studio apartments?
They're going to probably be 2-bedroom townhome type.
I think there's a little confusion on that, Dan, because the parking requirements are as Hillary stated them.
If I may, I think that was a typo.
I think
In
it
the
was
minutes, apologize, but if you look at the minutes from the previous page, it was talking about the units, and I think there's a typo referring to parking. I think the same language was copied over accidentally by Scribner's error.
Nope, not seeing it.
What page do you have to, that's
168.
168. So on page
So
1.
on the bullet points under public testimony, the second one down, it says he commented that he talked to staff to see how many units we could put on the property, and they said 8, but by the time you put in the infrastructure would be 4 to 6 range. And then on the section you're talking about under rebuttal, it looks like we copied over that same thing. It said, but with the addition of infrastructure would lower those parking stalls 4 to 6 range. So I think that was an error in the minutes. Because he's going to have to meet the code.
Instead of saying parking stalls, it should have been units. So
Probably, yes, correct.
It
So
says, per the city
an
requirements, to be, it's a confusing
Yeah.
statement.
So he'll have to meet parking.
Yeah.
Okay, that was,
Whatever it is, yeah.
that was my major concern here, because, if there's not going to be enough parking, and I know you have the authority to waive parking, but if there's not going to be enough parking,
Very limited reasons, yeah.
not going to be
Right.
kosher. So, all right, so you're going to put in enough spaces.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So I don't have anyone else on the list that would like to testify. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify on this matter tonight? Okay, so I'd open the public testimony. So not seeing any other public testimony, I'll close the public testimony portion of that and look for council action.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill number 21-1019, once by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second to suspend the rules. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Gookin,
No.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
Aye.
Motion carried. And now I'm asking the city clerk, substitute, to read the title.
An ordinance amending the zoning act of the city of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, known as Ordinance Number 1691. Ordinances of the city of Coeur d'Alene by changing the following described property from R12 to R17. Said property being described as follows, to wit, plus minus 0.47 acre parcel off of 4th Street south of Nieder Avenue located at 3221 North 4th Street. Repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause. Provide for the publication of a summary of this ordinance and an effective date hereof.
And we looking for more council action?
I move to adopt Council Bill number 21-1019.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Dan?
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to vote no on this. In the comp plan, it talked about, in this one area, pockets of high density. This is the last pocket of low density. There's no such thing as pockets of high density. It's all high density. We've got to draw the line somewhere. Density is an issue, and I am drawing the line here. Thank you.
Christie?
Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at this as all the property around it has been rezoned in the same manner, including we just did a rezone north of that for Habitat for Humanity just recently. Whenever there's the opportunity for just a handful of units of workforce housing and it makes sense in the area that it's in, I'm going to support it. Density is a concern. I don't think it's a concern throughout the entire city. And when it makes sense, I'm going to support it.
All right. Any other discussion? Roll call, please. Sherry?
Gookin.
Nope.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
No.
Motion carried. So I just had one final thing before we adjourned. I look at the stats in Kootenai Health of people that are in the hospital and in ICU daily. It actually comes out 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Today's numbers were 87 people in the hospital, 34 people in ICU. So 87 people that are sick, 34 people that are very sick. I'm not going to get in the middle of any debate on this, and unfortunately there is a debate on it, but I just would like to ask people, just try to be as safe and healthy as you can, because they are at, our hospital right now is stressed to the max. You have a lot of stressed out service providers up there. These people were the people that we count on to save our lives. And they are taxed and they are stressed out. So I would just ask everyone, please do your part and stay healthy. So now we would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Gookin votes no.
As usual, yeah.